I'm delighted to be here in this city that was built on free trade and hard work before the EU was even thought of. And we could do it then, we can do it again. I don't want to spend my entire 10 minutes explaining why I endorsed Ken Clarke in 1997. I can say it very simply. In those days, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man was king. I want to read you an email that I got from one of my devoted readers. I love my readers, and I love them not least because they send me emails like this. It came yesterday morning, and it said, "Dear Mr. Heffer, I'm seriously beginning to doubt this man's sanity." I'll give you 3 guesses who that's about.
Hang on.
How can he advise his MPs to ignore their local Conservative associations? Surely this will lead to even more resignations from loyal supporters and the determination never to vote again for a party who will ignore these crucial issues. He was interviewed yesterday, my reader goes on, by Laura Koonsberg and would not answer the question, why is it that you have started campaigning for an in vote, but you will not let your cabinet colleagues campaign for an out vote for the next 2 or 3 weeks? Is he descended from George III? That is a measure of what people think of the patronising and insulting way that their intelligence was treated when the Prime Minister came back this week with this so-called deal. If you go to another body, whether it's the EU or anything else, and ask for absolutely nothing, and you get slightly more than nothing in return, you've had a great triumph. But of course, this PR man is not going to be able to lie about that triumph and misrepresent it over a campaign that could last, who knows, another 18 months. I suspect in 2 weeks' time, when we have the summit at which the so-called deal is going to be endorsed, all those countries in Eastern Europe who are saying they might not endorse it will, as usual, have been bribed by the Germans. There'll be a new motorway opening in Poland, a new airport opening somewhere in Latvia, and they will suddenly come to heel, as they always do. Because, of course, as we all know, the EU is modelled on the old Soviet Union and has a very similar structure and has a very similar sense of direction. So he'll get it, and I think they're going to reopen Croydon Airport for him when he comes home. I'm here for 2 reasons tonight, and I'm sure that everyone in this room shares those reasons. One is that I love my country, and I believe in my country's ability to govern itself. The other reason is that I'm a Democrat, and I believe that we should have that ability to govern ourselves. I remember more than 20 years ago, just after ERM, being taken aside at a reception by a very senior cabinet minister who asked me in almost bereaved terms why I didn't like the European Union and why I was so rude about it in my columns. And I said to him, citing the example of ERM, that if we were a country that governed itself, when there was a policy that we didn't like, we only had to put up with it for maybe 3 or 4 years. We then had the choice of voting for a different party, thank God, and we could elect a party to do something different. And if our fellow countrymen disagreed with this, we just had to lump it. That's democracy. But I said to this man, I don't want to live in a country where I can only change really crucial policies, such as about the economy, by going out onto the streets and rioting. That's not how we do things in this country, and that's how we should never do them. He said to me that I didn't understand because the euro, not that it was called that then, but the single currency, if we went into it, would be such a strong currency, it would become the world's reserve currency, and we would be incredibly grateful to be part of it, and it would lead to decades of unrelenting economic success. Sadly, I have not seen him to have the conversation with him about Greece, Spain, Portugal, Ireland. The list is endless. I'm delighted to be here, though, sharing a platform with people from the Labour Party, the very distinguished and hugely admired Kate Hoey, and senior trade unionists, because this isn't about party politics. This is about us having the right to run our own country. This is about us all being joined by the sense of being Democrats together. I would rather live in a country, and I speak as somebody who is probably viscerally a conservative, I would rather live in a country where the people can elect Jeremy Corbyn to do whatever he will with our country for 5 years without anybody from abroad being able to stop him, than live in a country that was permanently conservative and run from Brussels. I had this conversation with Tony Benn, who I liked very much. I didn't agree with Tony Benn on almost anything except this. I didn't think I agreed with Jeremy Corbyn on anything at all, but I believe he used to believe in coming out of the European Union. For some reason, perhaps temporarily, he's changed his mind. It's always a question of fear, though. It's fear of the unknown. I mean, I'm old enough to remember life before what we used to call the common market. I was 15 when the last referendum happened, and I delivered leaflets for the No campaign and went round and canvassed for them. I'm afraid I'm an inveterate Euro non-joiner. And I remember that we could run ourselves, and in fact we ran ourselves rather well. We were one of the more orderly countries in Europe during the 20th century and had a great deal to be proud of. But people still worry, particularly people who weren't alive in 1973 when we went into this increasing mess, this corrupt ramp of Europeans. They worry that we can't survive on our own. I don't envisage the day, though, if we come out, and I hope and pray that we shall come out, that BMW or Moet and Chandon telephone the Board of Trade and say, I'm sorry, you can't buy our cars or you can't buy our champagne anymore. It isn't going to happen. As I heard Paul Nuttall say in his brilliant performance on Question Time last night, we have a huge trade deficit with Europe. They need us far more than we need them. The idea that they're going to stop trading with us just because we leave their rather corrupt ramp is nonsense. They will still want to sell things to us, and if they're going to do that, they're going to have to buy things from us. But fear is a very difficult emotion to conquer, and we must prepare ourselves, if the referendum is on the 23rd of June, for 4.5 months of non-stop scaremongering by a government that knows already it has lost the argument. And the palpability of how far it has lost that argument comes really with David Cameron telling his own MPs, ignore your Conservative associations. He knows that 90 to 100% of Conservative activists, depending on which constituency you're in, want to come out. Jeremy Corbyn knows a lot of his people in the Labour Party want to come out. This doesn't serve the traditional working class movement in any way. It's absolutely nonsense to suggest it does. And it's enlightened trade unions and enlightened Labour MPs who understand that the aims that they wish to pursue politically will be far better pursued without the austerity straitjacket of the European Union. But I remember also, and I put some lead in my pencil by watching a video of it yesterday, a magnificent speech that Enoch Powell made, not very far from here, up the road in Blackpool, in 1968. It was a speech that ended with this ringing phrase. He said, too often today people are ready to tell us this is not possible, that is not possible. I say, whatever the true interest of our country calls for is always possible. We have nothing to fear. We have nothing to fear but our own doubts. I am in no doubt now. I was in no doubt in 1975. And I'm afraid, call me narrow-minded if you want, my opinions have not changed a jot in 43 years or whatever it is. We can survive outside of the European Union. Of course we can. We can flourish outside of the European Union. There's a whole world out there outside Europe that wants to trade with us. And again, I want to have equal rights with people from our former empire, our Commonwealth countries. Why should Australians and Indians and Pakistanis find it so hard to come into this country to do jobs that we badly need as engineers and doctors, when anybody can walk in here from Eastern Europe? It's utterly nonsensical. But we have to overcome fears, and we have to warn our fellow citizens against scaremongering. And we have to go out from this hall and tell as many people as we can over the next 4.5 months that not only is life going to be feasible outside the EU, it's going to be a damn sight better. Because we We will be masters and mistresses in our own house once more. We will be the people who have to take the responsibility for running this country. If the electorate, if the democratically elected government of this country wants to do something, it can, with the electorate's approval, do it. We're not in that position at the moment. We are weaker for this. It is like being infantilized. It is like being treated like a small child who hasn't yet reached the age of responsibility, let alone the age to have a vote. I don't want to live in a country where I cannot change important policies because it doesn't matter for whom I vote, I get the same thing. We've seen how that has brought other countries to their knees. Think of Greece, think of Spain, think of Portugal, think of Ireland, and that's only on the surface. Ladies and gentlemen, please go out from this conference. Please tell everyone you know that there is a world out there outside the European Union, that we don't have to fear anything at all, and least of all, we should not fear itself.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.